Sports. There is nothing more entertaining than seeing two people or teams face each other off in competition. I think it's kind of an inbuilt reaction for humanity to be amused whenever they see two parties contesting against one another. I mean, take wrestling, arguably the oldest sport in the world, and practically revolves around two guys quite literally beating the wind out of each other. Are you not entertained? Well, basketball is really not that different. Of course, there is the appreciation for skill that contributes to love for the sport, but with it being among one of the most popular sports on the planet, we have seen a few juicy rivalries that can make watching games all the more interesting. And here's our pick for the top 10. Before we start the countdown, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video so we can continue working on similar topics and bringing you some really cool content related to basketball and the NBA. From top 10s to detailed career histories, we have it all. Now, on with the show. Number 10. New York Knicks vs. Baltimore Bullets. This vintage rivalry between the New York Knicks and Baltimore Bullets is one that goes back to the 1960s. Both teams had strong players, and although the Boston Celtics were dominating the sport at the time, these two saw themselves competing as opposing powers, each contesting to become a major player in the league. The Knicks managed to bag the 1969 playoffs and completely suppress the Bullets in a highly contested match. However, when the Bullets made a comeback in 1971, their newfound position was not well received by the Knicks. The two have been looking at each other with bloodthirsty eyes ever since. It lives on, and nowadays, everyone enjoys a heated game between the two. Number 9. Detroit Pistons vs. Boston Celtics. Well, sometimes defeat is not received well. If there was any rivalry caused as a result of getting butthurt in the world of basketball and NBA history, it was the one between Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics. So, why the hate? Well, back in '87, the two were competing against one another in the Eastern Conference Finals. Both teams had amazing players, like Larry Bird and Dennis "Magic" Johnson. When the game was drawing to an end, the Pistons were already celebrating with a very minuscule lead. What happened next was one of the greatest and funniest moments in NBA history. Larry Bird intercepted a ball by Dennis Johnson, made a crucial pass, and helped turn the tide of the game in the Celtics' favor. This spurred a fierce rivalry between the two for the rest of the 80s and early 90s. Yikes. Number 8. Boston Celtics vs. Philadelphia 76ers. Like I told you, the Celtics were the bosses back in the golden age of the sport. When you're at the top, there is bound to be competition, and rivalries often spring up as a result. The two teams battled it out at the Eastern Conference Finals in 1965 for 7 games, and the Celtics had a 110-109 lead. The 76ers winning ball for the final game was deflected by John Havlicek, keeping the thread of Boston's lead intact. Obviously, there was frustration, and that frustration saw itself roll out as a brutal rivalry until 1977. During that time, although the Celtics won most of the postseason matches, the 76ers beat them in 5 straight matches in the Eastern Division playoffs. Talk about revenge. Number 7. New York Knicks vs. Miami Heat. It all began when Pat Riley decided to leave the Knicks as head coach and become president of Miami Heat back in 1995. Although this proved to be a good luck charm for Miami Heat as it shot up the standings, the Knicks were simultaneously being led by Riley's disciple, Jeff Van Gundy. Both teams simultaneously performed well, with each trying to outclass the other in rankings. But with that desperate bid for superiority came the idea that the student was going to surpass the teacher. A rather friendlier rivalry than most. Both teams were under constant pressure to outperform the other. That kind of made everyone happy. I certainly remember enjoying some good quality game as a result. Number 6. Larry Bird vs. Julius Erving. Now, before we call Larry Bird a troublemaker, hear me out. The two had a deep respect for one another and were only showing good sportsman spirit. Both players were remarkably well in their game, and their competitive nature saw matches between the teams fill with crowd cheers and adrenaline rush. Whilst Bird was traditionally an excellent shooter and passer, Irving was creative and good at securing his defense. Thus, the two made to stand each other off in the perfect sense. There was no particular incident that sparked this rivalry, just sheer commitment and a clash of sportish brilliance. Everyone liked what was going on, and I'm pretty sure the two did so themselves as well. Number 5. Chicago Bulls vs. New York Knicks. Okay, so this is their third appearance on this list. I'm not really sure how to present the Knicks nicely anymore other than saying they were absolutely fierce. Whilst the Bulls were a top-notch team at the time and were massacring their opponents almost routinely, the Knicks were not going to have it. Although the Knicks did lose 4 out of 5 postseasons between '89 and '95, they didn't go out limping. They gave the Bulls a very tough challenge. In the 1994 NBA Finals, the Knicks beat the Bulls in a series of 7 games, and I remember someone saying that the Knicks were a matador who finally beat the big bad Bull. Olé! Number 4. Los Angeles Lakers vs. San Antonio Spurs. Shaquille O'Neal and Tim Duncan were some of the most celebrated players in the early 2000s, and whenever the LA Lakers had to contest against the SA Spurs, basketball enthusiasts did not even bother wasting time to get some popcorn. This rivalry became something beyond just the players, and the teams saw each other wrestling for dominance time and time again. The two teams clashed 5 times between 1999 and 2004, and fans were always kept on their toes. Man, do I wish I could travel back in time to witness the excitement and atmosphere one more time. Number 3. Cleveland Cavaliers vs. Golden State Warriors. Ever heard of deja vu? Yeah, well, that happened quite often recently for the Cleveland Warriors. This one is fairly recent and follows LeBron James's return to Cleveland Cavaliers in 2014. For the next few years, there was one interestingly noticeable occurrence. For each season, the Cavaliers made it into the finals. It was the Golden State Warriors that greeted them. For 4 straight years, the two teams kept meeting in the finals, and it was a tough face-off every single time. Not a single occurrence that sparked this one. Maybe a pure coincidence, or maybe just sheer will. We might never know, but the performance quality was outstanding, and the rivalry became well established. Number 2. Michael Jordan vs. Isaiah Thomas. We all love and know Michael Jordan, and it should not be a surprise that his name is on the list. Perhaps the best player of all time, he did see a couple of challenges. This one is a bit dramatic. It could even make for an interesting movie. When Jordan was just a rookie, Isaiah Thomas was heading the Detroit Pistons and blatantly tried to pin Jordan's career down. When word got out of this mistreatment, Jordan had a score to settle. Jordan made a name for himself that is still unparalleled. There was, obviously, a lot of bitterness between the two, and it showed every time the Isaiah Detroit Pistons and Jordan's Chicago Bulls would meet. I could say all was fine, but it wasn't. This was not sportsmanship anymore. It was personal. Before we move on to the most heated rivalry in NBA history, I want to say something important. If you're still watching, then the chances are that you like such content. So for everything NBA related, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and we promise to keep bringing you such amazing videos. Now, moving on to number 1. Number 1. Boston Celtics vs. LA Lakers. To top this list, we have a rivalry between the Boston Celtics and the LA Lakers, two key players in the world of basketball. The two have a record for facing each other off the most indecisive championship matches. Both have had legends hold their banners, the likes of Larry Bird, Paul Pierce, Wilt Chamberlain, and Kobe Bryant. For the 12 times they faced one another in the NBA Finals, every match has been phenomenal. The Celtics won the first 8 games they met for the championship, and the Lakers won the last 4. Honestly, I never enjoy watching any two teams fight it out more than these two. The Celtics have been the best and still are to some. And the same goes for the Lakers. For everyone who wants to see exceptional basketball, matches between Boston Celtics and LA Lakers are manna from heaven. Well, that's it for the top 10 rivalries. I hope you liked the video. If so, don't shy away from pressing that thumbs up button. It helps a lot. So let us know your thoughts in the comments, and also if you want to see a video about anything. And again, please subscribe and activate notifications, and quality videos such as this one are sure to guarantee. See you next season.